Now turning to some other news, at least 16 people have been killed and hundreds injured in Kenyan anti-government protests.
There comes a moment in history when a people rise, not because they are told to, not because they are organized by committees or coaxed by promises, but because something deep inside them breaks. And from that brokenness, something stronger is born. In Kenya, that moment has come. It began not with war drums or political campaigns. It began with pain, silent at first, like smoke before flame. Then it spread. It burned. It roared. And from Nairobi to Kisumu, from the slums to the suburbs, the youth of Kenya, especially Gen Z, rose up with fire in their hearts and truth on their tongues. But this is not a story about riots or chaos. This is the story of a generation refusing to die quietly. A generation that has grown tired of speeches that mean nothing, promises that vanish, and leaders who treat the poor like collateral damage. For too long, the youth were seen as votes to be harvested, muscles to be used during elections, or threats to be silenced in back alleys. No more. They rose, not behind a single leader, not in the name of a party or tribe, but as one body, one voice, one heartbeat. A movement without faces, a rebellion without borders. In the eyes of the government, it was confusing. In the hearts of the people, it was beautiful. This is Kenya's reckoning.
Major protests are taking place in Kenya against additional taxes in the finance bill. The Kenyan MPs are still debating the controversial bill in Parliament.
What sparked it was the finance bill of 2024, an insult dressed in bureaucracy. Another attempt to force the poor to pay for the greed of the powerful. Another blade slipped quietly into the backs of struggling families. Under the weight of IMF dictates and elite indifference, the government chose to tighten the noose, thinking that the people were too tired to protest. They were wrong. Young people didn't just protest. They translated dense policy documents into local dialects. They created protest songs in Sheng and Swahili. They live-streamed abuses. They spoke truth in memes and fury in tweets. They gave the country a lesson in courage, unpaid, unorganized, unstoppable. The streets filled with voices, not led by political figures or NGOs, but by students, artists, and street hawkers. And in that ocean of rage was something sacred: unity. No tribal slogans, no party colors, just pain turned into purpose. Just youth who refused to be pawns any longer. And when the state answered with brutality, the youth didn't flinch. They faced tear gas with chants. They faced bullets with bare chests and raised fists. They cried not just for themselves, but for the generations before them who stayed silent and the ones after them who deserve better. But let us be clear. This uprising was not born in a vacuum. It echoes the cries of Nigeria's youth during Nas Ensars, of South Africa's students during Nada Fees Must Fall, of Uganda's artists who dared to sing against tyranny, of Mozambicans who fought against stolen elections. This is the heartbeat of a continent, and it is loud. To our subscribers and supporters, thank you. Thank you for standing with the voices they try to silence. Your support fuels this mission. Your likes, your comments, your shares. This is how the African story is reclaimed, from the ground up, from those who live it. If you haven't yet, subscribe now. Be part of the movement that speaks boldly and without apology. Kenya's Gen Z isn't just trending, they are transforming. Their slogans are poetry. Their wounds are badges of honor. Their fallen are remembered, not with silence, but with songs that rattle windows of power. But power doesn't give up easily. Behind the scenes, the old guard panicked. State operatives planted goons in crowds. Plainclothes officers snatched protesters into unmarked cars. Spokespersons insisted there will be no demonstrations, as if saying it made it true. But you cannot cancel courage with words. You cannot ban resistance with press conferences. When one activist was dragged away, 3 more stood up. When one live stream was cut, 10 more went live. This is what happens when a people wake up. You can't control it. You can only fear it. Government mouthpieces began to talk of dialogue.
This is nothing to do with protests. This is nothing to do with freedom of expression. It was an unconstitutional attempt to change the regime of this republic.
They rolled out flashy programs with names like Youth Empowerment, Climate Works, Yoda. But none of it matters if behind every program is a baton, behind every promise a bullet. And we see through it. You cannot preach peace with blood on your hands. You cannot ask for patience while abducting children in the night. You cannot speak of unity while ordering silence. President Ruto, if your ears are still open, hear this. You were not elected to become a tyrant. You were not chosen to be feared. The youth do not owe you loyalty. You owe them dignity. The people gave you power. They can take it back. Kenya is bleeding not just from the finance bill, but from the betrayal of dreams, from the tears of mothers waiting for sons who never returned home, from the silence of institutions that should have protected them, but instead protected themselves. And yet, despite it all, the youth still march.
Today is a day for us youths, revolution. We are fighting for the rights of the fellow youths.
They still sing. They still believe. Because something has shifted. They are no longer begging for scraps. They are demanding justice. And not just for Kenya, but for Africa. This is the future Pan-Africanism. Not slogans from suits, but solidarity from students. Not summits in hotels, but unity in hashtags and handshakes across borders. This movement is leaderless, but not lost. It is decentralized, but not directionless. It is angry, but not without vision. It is young, but it carries the hopes of centuries. And as regimes across Africa watch with unease, let them tremble. Let them know what begins in Nairobi will echo in Kampala, in Accra, in Dakar, in Harare. Authoritarianism may wear different faces, but it fears the same thing, truth. This movement will not end in silence. It will not be co-opted. It is writing its own chapters. And one day, when our grandchildren ask where we stood when Kenya's youth stood up, may we not be ashamed. To the Gen Z of Kenya, we see you. We salute you. You are not criminals. You are not thugs. You are the conscience of a wounded nation. You are the proof that Africa is not lost, that Africa is not passive, that Africa is rising from the ground, from the youth, from the fire in your eyes. So march on, tweet on, sing louder, and if they shut one door, break open 10 more. If they block the streets, make the airwaves your highway. If they call you names, wear them like crowns. You are not asking for favors. You are demanding a future. And that is your right. Africa stands with you. And we, Voice of Africa, will keep telling your story until the world has no choice but to listen.